This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bareboat Alaska. Up your DIY hunting game with one of their 37-foot adventure yachts. You and 5 of your friends can hunt, fish, set crab pots, shrimp pots, and take DIY to the next level. Bareboat Alaska is locally owned by a Ketchikan resident who lives here year-round. Call Larry at 907-617-4542 or go to bareboatalaska.com. That's B-A-R-E boatalaska.com and tell Larry you heard about it on this podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. I was editing my book, which I've been doing for the last couple days, really hard. It's been kind of a hectic race to the finish, I guess, here in May is when I hope to have it out. In April, it should be available for pre-order. So I've been looking through and I've taken some time to think about and also add to just what influenced me and how kind of different this book is from my last book 2 years ago, and what it is that made it different and I think better. And while I'm pretty insecure about my writing, and I have imposter syndrome pretty bad, I've noticed there's definitely been a change in the style or improvement of the style, I should say that, but not a change in the style. And that's a result of paying attention to what other people do and what makes it work. It's not a matter of copying other people. It's a matter of allowing people who are experts or people who are really good at their craft to influence you. And there are elements in the creative process that you can take from it, ways to kind of get through, ways to be creative or put words to things in a way that's going to resonate with an audience, and just focus on those sort of things. We're at a time now where there's a focus on creating content when I'm not sure we always look at how we modify that content. Like how would we describe that content? Is it just content? Is it just something? Is it just stuff? Is it just a post? Or is there some sort of value to it? Is it creative? Have you been creative in the creation of this content? Or is it just stuff to regurgitate or just throw out there to get likes and get views, get eyeballs in the meantime? So I was looking at the podcast section. I mentioned this in the podcast chapter in the industry section, and of course talking about the Joe Rogan podcast, because it's such an interesting, just all of it. The whole thing is super interesting, and people that limit him to an MMA announcer ignore the fundamentals of what makes the conversation so good and so popular. It doesn't matter who he's talking to. There's going to be a nugget or two at least. It's a long podcast, but because of the fluidity of the conversation, there's always potential insight. And it's like it varies. It's almost like it's 2 or 3 podcasts in one, because the people he has on are obviously good at talking and good at performing in a way that an audience can take something from it. If there's a podcast that is just about telling a story, sometimes the stories can be good if you have a good storyteller, but if people weren't there and most listeners weren't there, it can just be kind of a boring, story about yourself. And the point is telling a story about yourself rather than providing some sort of nugget or telling something that's going to entertain a listener. And Rogan is so good about getting his guests to be real and provide insight, which is why he's able to transcend so many different audiences. If it was just about, pot and drinking Buffalo Trace, then you'd have a specific audience. If it was just about MMA, you'd have a specific audience. If it was just about politics, you'd have a specific audience. But the fact that he can draw from so many different groups of people shows our willingness to have insight given to us from a whole bunch of different people. It doesn't really matter who it is. You just listen to a former CIA guy. This is going to be interesting, or a comedian. This is going to be interesting. There's going to be some good stuff in there, some motivational stuff in there. Again, it's not going to be 3 hours of just people talking about themselves. Those are just unbearable. And there are some podcasts in the hunting world that kind of become that sometimes, especially in the off season, where it can just kind of, what are we going to talk about? Well, let's kind of rehash this for the 50th time. And writing can get like that too. And there are times when I think about, writing a column, like, gosh, is this the same stinking column? Like what am I going to provide in here that's going to be worth a read. Like, why would someone want to read this? Why is someone going to share this? And that's just a fundamental. You have to do that. That's part of it. That's a requirement of it. That's not an optional type thing. If you have a column in a newspaper, you get to choose. Maybe if you do that, you have to consider that. And so I've looked at also that in the writing realm, who has influenced me and what has influenced me those last couple of years, and how I've been able to grow as a writer. And I definitely am insecure, and I have imposter syndrome, but I look back at some of the stuff that I wrote a couple of years ago and think, man, I've improved as a writer. I know what I'm saying, and I'm saying it in a much more clear way. And I think that's so important, to not get caught in your own little echo chamber, your own little room where you are proficient enough to pass, and you just kind of stay there. It'd be like, I'm a high school English teacher, so if I come home thinking or being really proud of myself because I was able to outwit juniors and seniors, man, that's kind of pathetic, and that's not really in comparison. Yes, I might be a better writer or a better thinker than them, but that's because they're teenagers.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
And so if I'm the smartest person in the room, that's not going to be conducive to growth. And so by reading the best and by listening to the best podcast and figuring out why it is that this person is the best, that's not even necessarily the most noteworthy. There are some other podcasts I listen to and some of the authors, like, what is it that makes that work? And then not stealing, but allowing their individual use of language help upgrade or update your own. Look how clean they are, how good they are at articulating this thing, and what details do they choose and what details do they not choose. There are some fly fishing writers that I would read growing up that they never mentioned what the reel sounded like when a fish was on, because that's just an unnecessary, like, that, right? Why focus on something else? And then how to connect it to life. It's never like a lecture about life. It's never, searching for depth when it's not there, to kind of fake be depth. You just tell the story in a clean and clear way. And if there's some depth there, then you maybe hint at it a little bit, but not trying to lecture people or not trying to make something that's not epic. And I think forcing that was a big thing that I've learned, and I've noticed in some of my first hunting writing, 8, 9, 10 years ago, was I was trying to force it, not only as a writer but also as a hunter, because I was coming of age as a writer as social media was proliferating, and so there was this temptation or this ulterior motive potentially, rather than go out hunting and then writing about it. It became about writing about hunting. There's a subtle difference there, but I think it was instructive, and it was good to kind of dial back a little bit and really define what I wanted writing to be and define what I wanted hunting to be, and not as like a hustle. If I didn't want hunting to become my hustle or writing to become my hustle, I wanted to write because I enjoyed it and connect with readers, connect with an audience. And it happened to be about hunting, which meant that I could be, just kind of honest about things, and I wouldn't have to be so worried if I came back empty-handed, because that's telling a true story for so many people. If I try to build a facade or this persona that I am without fault and I am the best hunter in the world, or I'm some badass, then we know the reality. We know the reality is that failure happens, and to be not necessarily okay with that, but how can I write that in a way that's honest and it doesn't sound like a prepackaged statement about, oh, it's not even about the hunting. Well, yeah, it is. You're not. You wouldn't be paying $5,000 to come to this mountain to hike around if it wasn't hunting season, right? So it is about the hunt. It is about success. It is about, being there and notching the tag, but it doesn't have to be cliche, and it doesn't have to be, false reverence, things like that. So, the best writers are really good at writing about that and articulating that in a way. And then the best podcasts they're great. The people on those hosts are so good about being articulate and being clear and being interesting. So I know I have a long way to go when it comes to the podcast. I've only been doing the podcast for about 5 years, and I've been writing for 3 times that. But it has been fun, and that's been a focal point too. There are some of these columns or some of these chapters that I can just tell that I had a lot of fun writing that, and it's been pretty fun to edit that and go back and look at that and relive some of these cool stories. And I got it separated into 5 different parts, and the parts kind of reflect just all the different elements that there are in hunting, and how they all, hunting and life and creativity, they all work together. They're all intertwined. So it's not just 200 pages of hunting stories, because that kind of gets probably redundant. But I start off with the process and some of the first hunts, and the writing is clumsy at times, but I wanted to keep it as legit as possible, because on your 5th deer hunt, you're not going to have the insight of someone who's been hunting for 10 years. So when I went back and edited, there are some things that were kind of cringy, but I had to kind of keep that there because that's what I felt at the time. And that's what I wrote at the time. I didn't have 10 years of accumulated experience in which I could go back and I could write this and sound way more intellectual or refined, I guess, as a hunter and a writer. So start off with some of the beginning parts of my hunting career, and then growth. And then I go to part 2 is about mentors and those influencers and those people that we have. And those people are so unbelievably important because they inform our decisions, and they help help us create who we're going to be and help guide us on that. If we are mentored by legends and experts who value, or whatever they value is going to have a big impression on us. And if we allow celebrities and influencers to dictate our growth, then it's going to be one of those things where it's hunting becomes a hustle. It becomes not hunting. It becomes a means of making money, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you want to be an entrepreneur, be an entrepreneur. But I think it steers some people away from the enjoyment of the actual thing. It becomes about something else. It becomes about some sort of performance. If anybody has seen The Alpinist, that documentary about the climber, and how as soon as he got a sponsorship and he got to the point where he could have just done anything anywhere, he goes off the grid because that's not what it was about. To be able to have that level of care about the thing and not care about the sponsorships or care about the production or the everything else of it, just love and care about the purity of it. That's something that you can't really go back to once it's spoiled. If you've gone too far, or if you go too far, you can kind of get back. You can't get back to your roots the way you could if you just kind of temporarily lose your mind a little bit, or if you just kind of lose track of what's important. If you go too far, then the whole thing just kind of gets ruined, I think. And so who it is that mentors you is so important going forward into how you're going to define what hunting is going to be, and then also your part as a contributor to the creative scene. what are you going to create? What type of content is it going to be? What type of creativity you're going to use? Who you're going to talk to? Who you're going to allow to be influenced? Or who are you going to allow to influence you? So the mentors part, and then I talk about life, because as a hunter, it's something that we do for part of the year, but it's also part of who we are, and how we live informs how we hunt, and how we hunt informs how we live. It can be a great thing that kind of helps us not really get through the year, but helps us be excited and meet people and get through difficult things. And it's a healthy thing to be able to do. It reveals a lot about how we struggle. When you're in high school and your high school basketball coach or football coach or wrestling coach or whoever was talking about the revealing of character. And in the same way, sports in high school revealed character, or in college revealed character. Same thing with hunting. It reveals kind of who we are, and at times, and how we handle failure, and how we handle success, and how we handle ethics, or what is our ethics. And then also some social things that are going on now. It's no better. There's been no better time to be a hunter than right now, with all the technology that we have and all the goods that are at our disposal. And there's no gatekeepers for any of us that want to create content. It's just such a great time to be in the hunting space. But there's some people who are, they don't feel the same way, and then hunting gets lumped in with toxic masculinity and some of our social things that are driving people to be less and less active. And hunting just seems to be such a great, healthy alternative for a lot of people, with that active sort of lifestyle that provides purpose. But as a society right now, there's a scary trend that is keeping us more and more indoors, and more tricked into living these kind of boring lives. And so in part 3, I talk about those sort of issues. Not saying that hunting is the cure all. Obviously, going hunting is not going to just cure depression, or just fix anybody's life, because you have that a lot too, where people just think that, okay, if I shoot this massive elk, then all my problems are going to go away. If you're not dealing with your life, and you go and escape it for a week, you're going to come back to those same problems. So there's no solutions. I don't provide any sort of solutions in there, and I don't make accusations, but there's definitely some stuff I get into with the life section. And then section 4 is the fun section, where it's just straight up about tags and some successes and failures, and rut and elk hunting, and caribou hunting, and mountain goat hunting. So that's the longest section. But it was pretty fun to relive too. And a lot of these essays are pretty short, 700 to 1,000 words. So it's meant to kind of, you can sit down and you can read one pretty quickly. You don't have to have a whole lot of time. It could be just a great bathroom read. You put it on the back of the toilet there, and you read one, and then finish the business and go. So a little bit here and there. Also meant to be kind of a camping book too. It's not super thick. You can bring it along, and you can beat it up, and just short little musings about all things related to hunting. And then part 4 is about the industry, and talk about the temptations that people feel to stand out, and how I felt those early on, how you can get followers and how you can do all that stuff. But if you go down that road, is that really the road that you want to go down? And I'm not begrudging anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, who wants to make their money as a consultant, or a guide, or a filmmaker, or whatever. All that stuff is great. I love watching it, and I love seeing the creative products that people are creating. It just makes it so good to be a hunter right now. There's so much that's available to us. So much great stuff is being created. But there's there's stuff out there too that's not as good, and preys on our inabilities to stay focused. Preys on our inabilities to save. It preys on our insecurities, and so just kind of all about it. Again, not making accusations, just asking some questions, and talking about some stuff, and then end with what the future might look like. So I'm definitely proud of it. Definitely excited for it. Definitely also scared to have it out there, because there's some things that I know people are going to read the wrong possible way. That just always happens. I'm curious to see what it is. There are some areas where I think this is probably going to be where people get upset, if they do get upset. But who knows? You never know when you're being creative. You're putting a podcast out there. Or you're doing any sort of writing or any sort of creating. You never know what people are gonna, or how people are gonna respond to it. So, part of me is really, really excited. This is definitely the best that I've ever done. In some regards, some of the stuff is, again, it's some older stuff I edited. But there's some stuff in here that's just, it's the best that I've ever done, and I'm really, really proud of it. But also super scared to have it out there too. So be looking for that later on this spring. I appreciate everybody listening, and looking forward to sharing my 10 years of hunting with y'all. So talk to you next time.